Hi, the guy up here using the horrible jokes, my name's Mike, and this is my more professional colleague, Russ Beattie, from the Bay Area team where they do HTML5 development. So I'll be covering some of the intro stuff, and then Russ will get into the real meat of the presentation today. But first, I'd like to learn something about you guys as well. So, quick survey. How many of you people would think of yourselves as code ninjas? Awesome. Good to see some of you here. How many people write code? Super percentage of the audience. Okay, for those of you out there who may be students or designers, how many of you don't code but have people on your team who do? A handful of people. You might not get as much out of this as some of the people who code or dev, but I'll tell you what, I'll make sure that we have something in there for you guys too. Particularly when it comes to Amazon and mobile devices. A lot of people have the impression that Amazon's engagement with mobile is just around the Kindle Fire devices. And while we're thrilled to have launched some new HDX devices that are pretty neat, Amazon's investment in mobile really goes a lot deeper than that. And it starts with Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services is not just a great place to host your HTML5 content at reduced cost and things like that. Amazon Web Services also has a bunch of APIs and services to help mobile app developers be more productive faster. Amazon being a company that likes helping people sell things, we also have a lot of great distribution channels for mobile as well, including our own Android Appstore, which, by the way, can distribute apps to almost any Android device out there, and, of course, the aforementioned Kindle Fire. Being that Amazon also likes to help people who sell things make a lot of money while they sell things, we have a bunch of monetization tools as well. In particular, we have monetization tools that work really well on HTML5 applications that you submit to the Amazon App Store. For example, you can do in-app purchasing on a mobile device with your HTML5 application because we have Java libraries that let you do in-app purchasing. They also let you do geolocation. And we also let you do sign-in with Java libraries that are available for your HTML5 app that you can submit to our App Store. Now, the Amazon App Store, there's a really great picture of it on the left there. Quick note, Amazon did that in HTML5. To get your app on the Amazon App Store is easy. It's free to sign up for a developer account. It's available to millions of people in almost 200 countries worldwide, including China. The thing that I really want you to pay attention to is this snapshot here. When you submit your HTML5 app to Amazon, it's going to look like one of those icons. Can you tell the difference between an HTML5 app up there and a regular native Android app up there? Okay, it's a trick question. There really isn't a difference. But that's kind of the point. We've worked really hard to make HTML5 applications run just as quickly and efficiently as native applications do so that the user doesn't need to be told there's a difference. Most users are going to just assume that it works great. Just like our App Store runs on HTML5, so will your app, your HTML5 app, run on the device just fine. So the device is actually pretty important too. The App Store is available for all Android devices. It's actually pre-installed on Android devices from Verizon. But the Amazon App Store is the only App Store available on the Kindle Fire, which is important when you consider that over 42% of all Android tablet web traffic is driven by Kindle Fire devices. The green line at the bottom at about 7.5%, that's the next largest generator of web traffic from Android tablets. So if you want to be on an Android tablet, seriously consider submitting it to the Amazon App Store for Android. Now, we've done a lot of work with HTML5 to help make sure that things go well. As a matter of fact, we've taken most of our critical line of business applications and we've built them in HTML5. I mentioned the Amazon App Store. We also have our Chromium-based browser, Silk, as well as our free time for kids, as well as our MP3 store, Audible, our shop, and even one of the cool new applications on the HDX, the Mayday button, When you tap the Mayday button on an HDX device, you get a picture-in-picture video stream of a tech services person who you're going to watch as they talk you through whatever problem you're reporting. They can even mark up your screen so you can see what's going on. We did that in HTML5. So if we're doing all of that in HTML5, our core line of business applications, you'd better believe we got them working really well and really efficiently. To wit, looking at some of the benchmarks that are out there, we got a pretty good score on SunSpider. We're pretty happy with our position there. The Kindle Fire HDX is the bottom one. Given the nature of these things, you know, it depends on the build you take, and it depends on whether the test or the metrics change or not. But we've also done the Kraken benchmark, and while we didn't end up first, we're awfully close. We're right in there. So we're pretty pleased with those metrics. We also took our Chromium-based browser and we submitted it to HTML5test.com to find out how compliant we were in addition to how fast we were. We got a score of 441 and 11 bonus points, which out of context I get doesn't really mean anything to you. But in context, it puts us right there with some of the major browsers. 410 is Chrome, 399 is iOS, 422 is Netscape there. So we're in pretty good company when it comes to speed and when it comes to compatibility. What this means to an HTML5 developer is I think we're ready for this thing to go public. We're ready for your HTML5 apps in our App Store. Just like we made sure that all of the services we ran as Amazon.com were really tight, and then when they were great, we made them available to developers as Amazon Web Services. We've done the same thing for HTML5 mobile apps. We've used them ourselves on our critical line of business apps until we knew they were great. Now that they are, we're making those available to developers through the Amazon App Store on our HTML5 web platform. And to talk more about how that platform works, I'd like to introduce Russ.
Thanks. So, let's see. Oops. I didn't have to hit the button. So, the Amazon HTML5 platform is our effort to make sure that we have as much control of our own destiny as possible. So we've developed, we've based the web runtime, which is integrated into every Kindle device, the Kindle HDXs that were just launched, and also the previous generation of Kindle Fire tablets. So we've taken and have a version of Chromium, but we've done more than just take that version of Chromium and just use it. We've also optimized it for the hardware itself. So using the next generation Qualcomm chips that are in the newest tablets, making sure that the browser renders as quickly as possible, GPU acceleration as well. And then we want to make sure that we're not just meeting standards in terms of HTML5 support, but we're on the cutting edge of those standards. We want to make sure that we turn on things that if we think they're ready, then we use them. For example, one of the demos I'm going to show you has WebGL already running on the tablet devices, and that's enabled because we've decided to take the best that Chromium has to offer, optimize it for the hardware, and turn it on. All of this is wrapped in tools that are that I'm going to show you make it very friendly for developers. And you know, what we've done to make the Kindle a really great platform for HTML apps is integrate it as much as we can into the Fire OS operating system, which is our version of Android. So it's not just another web browser. It's actually a very highly integrated web platform, web runtime that is an essential part of the Kindle tablets and the Fire OS. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to my laptop, where I'm going to give you a demo of the tools that we use to develop for Kindle devices and some advice in general on mobile devices and how to develop mobile web apps. The very first thing I should say is that when I'm talking about web apps now, we're going to be focusing on, actually very similar to the previous talk, it's about single-page applications. It's not about mobile websites or responsive websites. We're talking about apps that can run on a device that is indistinguishable as much as possible from native apps. So I'm going to switch over now. How do we do?
Service is still thinking. Oh, wait, wait.
All right. So I have over here a handy dandy webcam pointed at the Kindle Fire tablet. I've got the browser in the background. I'm going to take a seat. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Everyone okay? I'm yelling as much as I can. So what we're going to do is a run through of the process. The very first thing you need if you're going to be developing on our platform and for the Amazon store, as Mike said, the store is very important to this to what we're talking about, because HTML5, we want to make it equivalent to native apps. We're not trying to develop just for a web app section of the store, but develop apps that are going to go right into the Amazon store. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go find what we're going to use to do testing and development, which is the web app tester. So on the device, I'm going to go to the Appstore. So let's see. Oh, of course I did. There we go. Thanks. There we go. All right. And so I already have it added, but I'll just show you that if you just do a search for web app tester, it should come right up. And that's on a Kindle device, but the Amazon App Store, say that perfectly, is not just on the Kindle devices. I'm going to pull up my phone here. It's actually, you can download it for any Android device. And so if I go into the App Store on my LG G1 here, and I do, live typing, web app, there we go. You can see I'm going to be able to pull it right up. So if I run it on, so I've already installed that, so I'm going to run it here. So if I run it on a non-Kindle device, what this allows you to do is I'm able to put in URLs for hosted web apps. This is just for a hosted web app solution. So if you have a mobile website already or a mobile game that it's already online, what you can do is you can add the URL, and then underneath you'll see that it has a line for you to click on it to test. Oops. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the video. So this is what it sort of looks like. And there we go. So let's go do that on the Kindle Fire, and we'll see how it looks there. So when you add it, like everything else, it becomes an icon. It also ends up in your carousel on this particular device. So I'll start it up. And here is where I can enter in my URLs. And is that blurry? Yep. Let me try that again. There we go. So what I'm able to do is enter in, let's say, for example, I actually added it here, wikihow.com. I could enter in, save it, and then we can go check it out in the Amazon web view, if it works like it's supposed to. I have network. Well, I'm actually connected to a tethered network, so I'm hoping that works.
That kind of brings up an interesting question.
Sure.
A lot of what we've been hearing today in various discussions is about mobility-based, device-based apps. I recall that the Kindle Fire is actually a hosted environment where the apps are actually running on the server and not on the Fire. Is that true?
For these apps that I'm talking about right now, for the web app platform that we launched a couple of months ago, it is definitely all hosted services. So we're working with Cordova right now, the open source project, to do hybrid applications. That's not launched yet, but we're working on it. Hey, there we go, it came up. But right now what I'm explaining is all about taking your hosted web app and making it into sort of a packaged app that can go into the App Store.
Okay, that's what I wanted, because some people have been talking about you can't get a dependable network connection all the time and you want your app to keep working.
That's true, and so let me go through the demo a little bit, I'll show you, and then there's some solutions for that. So, all right. Okay, so I finally got the connection. That was worrying for a minute. And I just pulled up WikiHow, which is a mobile version of the wikihow.com site. And what I'm doing with this is just show you that this is how the web app tester is going to work. You enter a URL, you come up. So basically, it's a full screen mini browser that you can use to test. So there's a couple ways to now we want to do some development. All right, so let's connect to it with a debugger on our desktop, and we're going to be using the same Chromium debug tools, the dev tools that you would normally do to do web app development. I kind of just have like a raise of hands. Everyone knows dev tools? Yes, yes and no. So everyone's used dev tools, so we've seen that. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you a quick tour of how it works on the mobile device. So once I have the web app tester up and running, I'm going to, in this instance, I'm going to swipe down, and I have a couple options. The first, and this is the one I use a lot, is over the network. And so when I wish this wasn't so blurry. Let me see if I can get out of the light a little bit, and you can actually read it. The problem is there's so much light that it's not focusing. Oh. There we go. Thank you very much. Everyone smile. Okay, let's see if I can get this so I can smile. There, can you read it? Hey, all right, okay. So it gives you instructions on how to connect. So what I'm going to do is these are both on the same network, and I'm going to, is this what it says? I think so. And that should have connected pretty quickly. So. Oh, it's 191. Oops, that was at home. 43, 1, 1. There we go. So now what we're doing is we're connecting to the dev tools are hosted on the device itself. So what I'm going to do is just go back into the WikiHow page. I'll refresh this, and oops, it's a little bit bug right there. So what's happening is I'm now using the dev tools. I'm doing it over the network, and this is actually plugged in with USB. We'll use that in a second, but this could be unplugged from the USB. I could walk around with it. I could just use it on my lap. It makes it a little easier to do the regular testing. So let me do the basic sort of dev tools example here. As you highlight things here in the side, I can see how that reflects on the it highlights, it paints over the area in the browser. So just like you would do regular development with the dev tools on a desktop, you can do that on the device itself. The other way to connect is on these Android devices, which is what you have to do to do this development, is we're going to go back, and then it has instructions on here. You can see where it says we're going to connect by ADB. So again, you tap on that, and this you just do this once. Then I can go through, and this is a standard debug port forwarding for Android development. And so if you install the Android SDK, you'll have ADB in your path. You'll be able to do this command. What that does is forward the traffic from the device itself over, and I can just connect to the debug tools over the USB port, which has some benefits in that it doesn't have to use the wireless connection. Oops, so let me get rid of this one and refresh that. There we go. So now we'll go back into WikiHow, refresh this, and then now we're inside the development again. And you guys lost the image. Let's see. Okay, so now we're back up here. Okay, so now we're connected with the ADB tools. And I want to be able to have, say I'm testing one URL or many URLs, I can enter them manually. Or one of the things I can do, which is convenient, is I can pull up either whatever the USB connection. If you're using on Windows, you don't have to use this. If you're using on Mac, you have the Android file transfer app. And I'm just going to basically, or not basically, what I'm going to do is, oops, so much of my, there it is. I've got some URLs that I want to test. And so I save it as Amazon test urls.json. And if I correct, it should be right there. Okay, great. And so I just copy that over to the root or the SD card, and then they will appear. This is where this list is coming from, here. So I can just now have all that stuff pre-done. I don't have to enter those URLs in. If the URLs are long and complicated, I don't have to go in and try to tap them all out on the screen itself. I can pre-populate. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Okay, so, all right. Just checking my notes. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to go through and basically go through what a process of testing an app would be. I have an app that is on the Appstore that I've used already to do a lot of development. And what you're able to do is, it makes sense. I've done a lot of development with it. It's an actual app. It's on the App Store. You can download it, and it's a regular web app. So it's flip.io. It's a mobile site, and so I want to be able to use it to. What it is basically a puzzle app. It's kind of meant to be like this. There we go. So it gives you some clues, and it will has your basic interaction. I can tap down here on the devices. So not a very complicated application. It's not using a lot of a lot of hardware, a lot of software. It doesn't have to talk to the network. All the puzzles, there's 1,000 puzzles, have all been downloaded. So it's a really good app, and but it's self-contained, and it's all written in HTML and JavaScript and CSS, just like any other app. So it's a great app. It's a great example of just a very simple but very useful application that we can write in HTML5. So what I wanted to show is the basic sort of interactivity that you can get with this sort of debugging. Has anyone done remote debugging on a device before? Yes, no, a few? Okay, so you've seen this stuff where you can go and say, I want to be able to identify a specific area of the screen, so I can hit the magnifying glass, and then I can go tap and interact with the device itself, and I can go right to that section of the screen. So I don't have to try to guess where things are. And then I can go and do all of the debugging that you would normally do. I can pull up inside of the debugger and see all the debug messages. If I've done some development on the back end, if I've done some changes, I can hit Control-R. It'll refresh, pull the whole site from the server and reload it. This is really good because now I don't have to constantly be reloading or retouching the screen unless I really want to. I can do my development in my regular dev tools and then go and just see what I need to and interact with the screen when I need to on the device itself. Let me pull up another app that's a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to go back to the main screen here. It'll load up. You see that pause there for a second? That's what's loading up the other. It's loading up the JSON list of URLs. And so here is a demo game. Okay, so this is using. Load up just a second. So this is using WebGL on the mobile device, and it works. I just tap on the screen on the side, and I can try to get the energy. This is the general idea. So again, all of the assets here, including sound files, the JavaScript, the CSS, everything is stored in the server, and it's downloaded onto the device. So this looks like a regular application, a native app, doesn't it? It's not too bad, and it's interactive. Now oh, sorry, I'm going to go back to my, you guys are looking at what I'm looking at, right? Okay, good. Except now we're at Google again. There we go, all right. So now I'm going to go back in, again, I'm using the debug over the ADB connection. So here is the main screen of the application homepage. And so what I want to do is, on the browser, this is actually quite a lot faster. Oh, okay, ignore that. It's actually a lot faster. I disabled the mouse thing so I was having some trouble with it. And so then I can't actually activate it. So what I want to do is I want to find out where the bottlenecks are. So just like we can do on the desktop, I can go in and I can do my basic timeline profiling. So I can go in, do some profiling, let's stop it, and then we can look in and say, okay, where is some of the stuff, where is the delay? We want to get to 60 frames a second. We want to dejank it, and this is not really as smooth as we want it to be. It's well below 30 frames per second here, right? So we can take a look and we can find out where this is causing bottlenecks. I don't know how much of my screen you can see. Oh, good. So you're basically seeing what I'm saying. So the app is very simple. It basically just sets up a plane, adds a bunch of polygons to the plane, starts to move them in an animate loop. So let's go to animate. And let's go to the next one. One more time. There we go. So here's our animation loop. And I think that what's the problem is that in the device itself, on a desktop, it seemed to be able to handle quite a lot of polygons. So what we need to do is we need to go and get rid of those polygons. Instead of trying to do that live, what I did was I created another version where I did two things. I got rid of the polygon and then also added in the request animation frame instead of doing the, sorry? Oh, sorry, I'm not showing you what I'm doing. Thank you for that. There we go. So, okay, I'm going to go to again too. So now what I've done is I've reduced the polygon count. Oh, come on now. This helped. Let's do it. I think people are sending me work emails, and that's why I'm not having the bandwidth I should. Let's try this one more time. Come on, activate. Okay, so it's live. Okay, so I have to recover and go to the next bit. Okay, so that's not connecting. All right. Oop. There, that was the problem. Okay. There we go. All right, so now we have a much more performant app. Oops, kind of backwards. All right, and so again, I can go back and forth. I can touch the screen and zip around. So this is a little bit more challenging. This is a little bit more like I was expecting the app to be. And we can go through and confirm this. You don't want to guess, you want to test is the expression, right? So we can go through and let's do our timeline again and see if we've made it a little bit better. So yeah, before the line here was at 30 frames per second. So by reducing the polygon count, which we're able to tell because of the tools, and going in and doing some basic stuff like I'm going to talk about in a second, the request animation frame, we're able to speed this up quite a bit. So we're able to use the tools to develop real-world apps and do some really cool stuff like that. Okay, so that is your basic tools. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. Oh gosh, I almost forgot about this. One of the great things about this is that you can go in, and the other way we can check our frames per second is to turn on the FPS meter. So let's see. Let me just do. I'm calling a method inside the app. Pause me. Oh, I got out of it. That would have been much more impressive if I had remembered. Okay. Now, up in the very top corner, you can barely see it up there. There is a frames per second meter. Does everyone see that? So this is a really handy tool in DevTools. And what it allows you to do, especially if you're doing any sort of game development, or even if you're just doing scrolling performance and things like that, you're able to see the live frames per second, but by not having to add in like stats.js or some of the other JavaScript tools out there which will do it for you, which will kind of do the same thing. This is coming from the DevTools itself, so that it actually won't affect the performance as much as some of those other tools. Yeah, all right. So that's one of the things I wanted to it's on my checklist. Check it out. Okay, so now I just want to do is I want to go over some of the performance tips. This is what the overview, and then what I want to do is just give a general, these are our tips and tricks you can pick up from the internet or in different books, but try to focus them in here so that you can kind of think, okay, I want to create a mobile web app. I want to create this app, put it on the App Store. You know, what do I need to look for? What do I need to do? This is how to do it. So the very first thing I want to say is, here's your template. This is your home. This is your HTML page. This is your index.html. It does not need to be much more complicated than this. There's a few things to point out. First is the viewport. If you're making a mobile website, and I think I'll actually stand up this front. So if you're making a mobile website, you probably don't want to turn off user scalability. You don't want to have, you want to let them pinch and zoom and things like that. It makes the screen a little bit, the site a little bit more usable from a usability perspective on mobile. If you're making a mobile web app, though, you want to have control of your screen. You want to have your screen to be exactly the same size, and here's the benefit of it that you may not know. By putting the maximum scale in there, it turns off the 300 millisecond delay in Chromium and Firefox, maybe some of the other mobile browsers, that you would normally get when tapping the screen. So that 300 millisecond delay is so you can double tap, right? You do a maximum scale in your viewport, and that gets rid of that. So you don't have to worry about that as much. It makes your app a lot more responsive, and it gives you more control over how your interaction works with the device. Now, oh wait, I'm sorry, one more. The other thing is you've got to make sure you keep track of how your app loads up. So keep any sort of inline styles above your JavaScript, otherwise it'll block all of your JavaScript until the JavaScript comes down, then it'll do the style. Put your JavaScript at the bottom, or use a loader. Something to do asynchronous loading. So I usually just put my stuff down the bottom. This is all you need for a web app. The two apps I just showed you have this basic structure. All the other details about the app itself are in the JavaScript. So this is all you need. However, that said, there's actually a lot more stuff you can put up there. It seems that every manufacturer, oops, this is scrolled down. Every manufacturer has their own meta tags that they put inside their mobile apps to add features for their platform. So you have to be, if you're going to be multiple platform, you've got to know some of these things. For example, BlackBerry, to turn off the highlight when you tap something, they have the XRIM auto match meta tag. Microsoft has in their platform several meta tags. Most of them have to do with the tiles. Does anyone have a Windows phone? Not many. Okay. Well, they have this great tile screen in the front, and you can actually control the tile color and what the icon is there by putting some meta tags in your app. Apple has a ton. Apple is, they're the guys that originated a lot of this, and they have the ability to save your mobile web app as from a site itself right to the home page from the home screen, and be able to have an icon. So you can define all your icons there. Google just recently changed Chromium. They just launched Chromium for Android, which does the same thing, but instead of having Apple mobile web app capable, it now just says mobile web app capable, which makes sense. But that, again, is very cool. You can just go into the same site I just had, flip.io. You could go and add that as an app to your home screen just by using a browser, right? So if you did that and you had these meta tags in there, you could have it would have a nice icon. You could have a little screenshot. It would be nice. Let's see. Mozilla has some things for it, and it's actually trying to be open. So they're trying to do everything they do with an open way, with an open way of doing things. There's also things like if you don't want it, if you're showing numbers and you don't want the browser to try to auto-detect phone numbers and things, you can turn that off with these meta tags here, these format detections. So there's a lot of little things you could put in your web app. However, the vector runner app doesn't really have a lot of text, doesn't have a lot of these things, so I don't need it, so I don't worry about it. But these are just some of the things that you could do as your basic structure. Okay, so the very first thing in the JavaScript I want to talk about is the request animation frame. Now, the simplest way to use it is, you can see down the bottom, instead of using a timeout to do 60 frames a second, you can do this new request animation frame. Now, it's supported in lots of different ways in lots of different browsers. So you'll use a polyfill most likely, and the polyfill kind of looks like this. It just kind of detects, what browser you're using, and then replaces the animation frame method with the appropriate one. But in its simplicity is actually this. This is my animation loop. I'm going to take my context, which could be the canvas, and I'm going to draw to it. I'm going to move some things around it. you just want to swap out any sort of timer you have with this request animation frame. In case you don't know what it is, if you do know what it is, then you already you already know. But the idea is that it will the browser will basically call this when it's ready to redraw the screen, and it doesn't just kind of have to force fit whenever you called set timeout to try to draw. And by doing that, it makes things a lot smoother and a lot more performant, as you could see with the vector runner when I showed you the frames per second. It makes it a lot smoother. Okay, so polyfill. Another thing now, this is something I need to add to my Flip app. I need orientation detection. Again, if your app is meant to be used in one orientation or another orientation, you need to be able to detect that. You can do that with the orientation, sorry, it's down here, the on orientation change event. So something you want to look out for. These slides are all going to be online, by the way, so this stuff is really meant for sort of after you can go back and go, what is that thing he told me about? Well, here, it'll all be here. Again, also resizing, some mobile browsers will allow you to resize, so if you do that, you want to make sure you keep track of the resize event. Okay, when you're adding and subtracting to the device, if you're going to do it a lot, you need to make sure that you you do all this stuff as much as you can inside of a document fragment. So I'm going to make a document fragment, add everything I want to do into that document fragment first, and then add it, and that will keep you from having to redraw the screen over and over again. On a desktop, you may not be able to notice it, but on a mobile device, even a powerful mobile device like the newest tablets, you're going to be able to see that, and it's going to cause some issues. So you want to try to put everything you can into document fragments. This is another thing. Put all your styles. Don't change your styles one by one on a single device. Sometimes you might think, oh well, the browser will be smart about it and cache a bunch of changes until the next time it's ready. Well, it may or may not. You want to be able to do it yourself. Just do all of your changes in one call, or just set the class to another to something that's already preset. Cache DOM values into variables is again something that you want to do. Don't reference the don't do a get element by ID. I don't want to query the DOM over and over again. You can put that into a variable, and it'll actually save effort on the browser to try to figure out what you're talking about. So this is interesting. This is something I didn't realize. WebKit specifically, every time you query the page for the size of a dimension or a location of the element, so a div box or something, it actually has to in memory redraw the page. So if you're having some issues with redrawing problems, you want to be able to you want to try to minimize how much you're querying for the location of items. So this is actually most apparent when you try to scroll things where it's doing magic on the scrolling. It might be say displaying things after a certain amount of scrolling. Well, this is an example of why it might be having so much trouble. Don't measure until you need to, and that'll, especially on WebKit-based browsers, and that'll save the redraw time. Okay, debounce events. This is your sort of standard performance one, but when you do things like resize the window, it'll call that like a million times as you're resizing it. So you want to throttle those things and make sure you're not calling them over and over again for no reason. Okay, so here's a demo that I'm going to pull up back on the device again. And one of the things you may have noticed, I just had it in my hand, I didn't actually go back there. One of the things you may have noticed is that when I was touching the screen, sorry, you guys can't see what I see, magic? All right, so here it is. When I touch the screen, I go back and forth, but if I slide a little bit, sometimes it doesn't register that I stopped touching. There's a lot of problems right now with touch start, touch end, especially across devices. So Microsoft came up with a new set of events, and it's going to be standardized. Most of the browsers, I think, manufacturers have agreed on it, called pointer events. So this is the same demo. Let's go back here. And what I've done is I've integrated in the pointer events. So let's see. We'll go to the Draw app first. And so what I can do is, as I'm drawing, you can see these are the events that are being called. I hope you can see them. And so this is really nice because by adding in that polyfill, somebody else has kind of done all the work to try to figure out, okay, is this support for this browser? Is it, when he lifts up his finger, is that a touch end event? Is it not a touch end event? Basically standardizing all of these different events so that the interactivity when you're touching the screen is better. And then, so what I've done is I've added that back into the little game demo we're using. So this same demo is now using the polyfill for touch. And so instead of having to do the touch events, and it's a little bit more responsive, I can do a little bit more sliding on there without it messing up. Oops, there you go. Yeah, it's not as good as I was hoping it would be. But the idea is that at least now it's using standard events and standard, the upcoming standard of HTML5 touch events. So that's where that is going. All right, so try not to use cookies very much. These are all tips and tricks and basically of trying to say, hey, let's not overtax the browser as much. One example is don't use cookies when you could use local storage. It stores a lot more. It's actually faster access. So this is just one of those examples. CSS transitions instead of JavaScript. If you're using JavaScript to do movements and phase and things, you can put a lot of stuff into CSS now, and we've seen a lot of these sorts of things. Here's a basic slideshow. All of the animation here. Oh, again, sorry. I need to get better at my switching. So again, all of the animation here is done with CSS. So there's no JavaScript moving things around slowly. There's the sort of snap event that happens is not happening because of a JavaScript query. It's all happening because of the CSS. Once it gets to a certain point, the CSS takes over. It does a transition. So these are the things you want to do because they are GPU optimized on these modern browsers, and it'll make the interactivity a lot nicer for the end user on the mobile devices. CSS. Okay, so you have to do media queries. Media queries can do things not just the size of the screen, which is the most common, but also things like portrait and landscape. You can also, let's see, where's my... You can also, on WebKit devices, use the ratio, so that if you're trying to add in, say, the Retina class devices, this has I think it's 323 pixels per inch on the Kindle Fire. So if you have an icon that's only, say, 60 pixels wide, it's going to look microscopic on these devices. You can modify your CSS to make sure that you include the right images for that device. This is another one of those things that as you're doing development, you go, oh crap, this thing looks too small on this device or that. And this is the sort of thing that you want to be able to detect. Sorry, I can't see my screen. There you go. All right, so there's a bunch of things also in CSS that you want to do to disable. So, again, this is about taking your app and making it an app, taking your mobile website, your mobile web app that you've got, say, a game, and getting it to be an app as easily as possible. These are the sorts of things that you want to remember. Make sure that you get rid of the tab highlighting. Let's see, what are the other ones here? There's various browsers have different ways of doing that. Make sure you do the prefixer or some sort of tool which allow you to add in all the prefixes. Making sure you don't do drag, making sure that, if you want to swap out what the password looks like, instead of a dot, it can be on a square. There's a lot of these little things that you can do just to make your app a little bit nicer and a little bit more native feeling. And these are all, again, in CSS. The cool thing about animations is that here we go. So what you can do is, if you're doing animations on your device, or even just doing basic scrolling and movements around the screen, you can actually hint to the browser to turn on GPU rendering. And the way you do that is with this hack. It's a Translate 3D hack. It's actually, or the Translate Z hack. And what it does is, it basically says, hey, even though this may be a 2D block or a div that I'm moving, treat it as if it was 3D and then do the acceleration so that that specific page, the section of the page that's dirty, is then put into the GPU to render and makes it a lot smoother and a lot nicer. And again, you're not actually doing anything. I'm not actually translating this. I'm not moving the Z. Here's another way of doing it, the translate Z. It'll just make that one section a little bit nicer just by adding a little bit of CSS. So this is a nice thing to remember. Okay, so finally, on the server side, you have to remember your MIME types. So for our platform, the web app platform, which Mike is going to talk about producing in just a minute, publishing to in just a second, you want to make sure that you have a couple things on your server. The first thing is the app cache manifest. And this goes back to the very first question I got, which is, okay, so it goes offline. So this is where I do the final demo. So focused. All right. So here is the app. And so if I go into the App Store, I can find my little Flip app. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn off wireless. Oop, that's airplane. Okay, so now it's on airplane mode. Sorry, can't see. Okay, so now I start up the app. And because I've loaded up the app before, and I put an app cache into the mobile app, so it can go offline, it does. It looks for a network connection, tries, the browser is intelligent, it goes out, it says, oh, I can't find the app cache, and pulls the assets from the saved memory that it's already done before into storage. The app cache is just basically this. It's a list of the assets inside of the application. So there's not a lot. The game I showed you, the little vector runner, doesn't have very many things to cache. Something like the oops. I can go back to the home page. Something like,
how much space is available for caching?
That's a good question. I know there's most likely a limit, but I don't know the answer.
I was curious how many apps we could cache at one time.
Well, each one will have its own separate store. I just don't know if it's the same limit as the local storage or not, which is about 5 megs depending on the browser. So I think it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. So I'll have to look it up and try to figure out how much you can store. But I know that it'll store some MP3s and some music, and it stores that all locally very well. And those are all, let's say, a meg or to a piece. So I know from a practical standpoint, I haven't hit the storage. I know I've read about, has everyone seen the stories about the Financial Times, how they have a great web app that they've used to sort of get around the Appstore problems? They've done a lot in local storage because of images, right? They don't want to load up a bunch of images into the app cache, which is where you would normally put images, right? But because they have so many news items that they actually download all of those to storage as blobs and then pull them out. So I think that, as you reach a sort of limit, you're going to have to try to figure out how it works. And I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I know that it's something that you have to kind of manage. All I was going to show you was the, let's see if I got the app, just the background of it. So here in the head, I've got the manifest equals flip.app cache. And then if we go to the resources, we can see that here's our application cache. And then here's everything in the cache and then how much storage it's taking up. So that's something that you can basically make a offline web app. As soon as they hit the first pull, they pull everything off the server, but then after that, they just checks the app cache to see if it's changed. If it hasn't been changed, then it's all loaded locally. Makes it the app faster, makes it usable offline. And to my mom, who uses my little app, it's exactly the same as a regular web app, a regular application, a native app. There's no difference to her at all whether she's connected or not. So I think that's the end of I'm done.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. How many people here have web apps that are actually up and running? How many of those are actually also on a mobile device? That's almost all of them. How many of you are planning on putting an HTML5 or other web app standing that up soon. Anyone? Okay, I'll tell you what. Since I need to let you guys go soon, after the presentation, I'll go ahead and I will show you how to actually use the Amazon App Store. And so you can, in 30 minutes or less, actually take your existing HTML5 app and create a web app on our store, a submission for our store on that. But the bottom line is, it's really easy. You create a Dev Portal account. It's free. You add some metadata, and you add where you want it available, everywhere. Maybe you don't want it available somewhere. That's fine. Add some metadata descriptions. And what the App Store will do is it will generate some JSON file for you. Basically, this is your app manifest. The app manifest JSON file needs to go in the root folder of your web app. Heads up. Everybody uses a different one. Apple's is different than Google's is different than Amazon's. So everyone's going to have a slightly different set of properties in their JSON manifest file. Ours includes a little ID so that we can be sure that this is actually matching your app. So that will be pretty important. This is kind of what it looks like. And you'll see insert your verification key from the app files. The App Store will actually give you that code. You'll notice in the permission section, you have IAP, which is in-app purchasing, geolocation, and authentication. So if you plan on using those services, you sort of call those out here. And you can save that separately. Again, the MIME types, don't do what I did and try and get this running without making sure that your web server will return JSON. You will spend weeks trying to figure out what's wrong. So don't be me. Make sure that you're responding correctly for your MIME type settings. And finally, go ahead and get help. We've got some really great documentation up on our site. You can go to developer.amazon.com/webapp. You can also go to bit.ly Amazon HTML5. You can go ahead and look for help inside of our forums, and you can also actually write to contact us. Here's something you probably didn't know. A real human being will actually read anything you send to contact us. The response you get may be a canned response if we've seen the question before, but a real person looks at those. And if the first response doesn't answer your question, respond again. The chances are we'll give you a more accurate answer if the first one didn't actually solve your problem. So don't be afraid to use that. It's actually fairly helpful. Okay, thank you very much for your time. I need to let you go. If you would like to stick around and watch me go ahead and create a web app submission in the store, go ahead. I will set that up now. The live web app and get it up on the store. So I've created an Amazon.com developer account for free. This is my account. And to create an HTML5 app, I'm going to go to the bottom of my home page, and I'm going to go ahead and select Add a New App, Mobile Web. I get to add handy things like the app title. And I'll make that pretty easy. I can add a SKU if I would like to keep track of that on my own if I have any in-app purchases that may be requiring a SKU. It'll go ahead and use my contact support from my dev account. I'll save that. And here I have the chance to decide where it's going to be available. We have, again, almost 200 countries where you can be available. And you can select all of them, or you can just select some of them. So I want to be available in China, and I also want to be available in most of North America. So or actually all of North America. So I'll select all of North America. I'll go ahead, save that. I can add a description, which will show up in the App Store. I can add images and multimedia icons to show off how great my app is. A content rating, so that we know whether it is family appropriate or not. These are the same app ratings that you've seen everywhere else, and those will be fine. And here's where the money happens, the app files. So remember the JSON file that I told you about. Here's your actual JSON snippet. You can copy paste this, save it as a JSON manifest.xml, and save it has the key that you need right there. And go ahead and save that to the root of your web app. Then go ahead and put the address to your web app right here. you'll notice that before I cleared it, it actually had the path to the JSON manifest there. When you click verify, it'll verify that it can get to your mobile app website. It'll verify that it can get to the manifest. At that point, you can enter testing instructions. Every app that goes into the Amazon App Store is tested. Let me tell you a quick story about that. Imagine that you saw a product description for an app that showed the best football plays. Okay, by football I mean soccer, but okay, work with me on this one, guys. The best football plays of the week in audio and video. I would expect video clips of amazing saves of goals or amazing corner kicks that make it into the goal. The app actually was a cheesy PowerPoint slideshow with tinny music in the background. Okay, you would not be a happy, I was not a happy customer. You know what? We test those apps so that if we find something like that, we reject it. We'll send it back to the developer and ask the developer to make their description more honest or to make their app match the description. We test things so that we have really happy customers. The good thing about having happy customers is that the average revenue per user of an Amazon customer is higher than the average revenue per user of Google Play customers by far. So, if your app requires any special instructions for testing so that it'll get the appropriate attention from our QA team, put those here, click Save. Once you've got all of those things filled out, there will be a Submit button right down here. You'll click Submit, and that's all you need to do to take your existing HTML5 app and submit it to the Amazon App Store. It's that easy. Can you do that in 30 minutes? Okay, who can't do that in 30 minutes? I'll sit down with you and we'll work through it step by step. Okay, everyone who didn't raise their hands, if you've got an HTML5 web app now, submit it to the Amazon App Store. It costs you nothing, gives you exposure to millions of people in almost 200 countries. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? Hey guys, there's a fantastic demo of a WebGL app running on a Kindle Fire out at our booth. A little late to stop by tonight, but stop by tomorrow, and you'll see how amazingly well it works. Occasionally, the developer might come around, ask him to show it to you on different platforms, ask him how hard it was to get his WebGL app on the Kindle Fire. He'll tell you a story a lot like this. Hey guys, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your evening.